Gran left me 137K in a secret trust. She bypassed my parents on purpose. When I found out why, I understood everything. My brother had been stealing from them for years, and nobody wanted to see it. My dad looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Declan has vision. You just drive an ambulance. I'm a paramedic. I save lives for a living. I've held people's hands while they died on kitchen floors. I've restarted hearts in the back of a moving vehicle at 2 in the morning. But in my family, that was never enough. Not when my older brother existed. So when they cut me out of the will for refusing to bankroll his third failed restaurant, I thought that was rock bottom. Turns out, rock bottom has a basement. And what I found down there didn't just change my inheritance. It put my brother in handcuffs. My name's Callum. I'm 34 years old, and I work out of the Yorkshire Ambulance Service Station in Sheffield. My brother Declan is 38. Growing up, he was the golden child. Not in a subtle way, in a way that shaped everything. Declan got private maths tutoring 3 nights a week. 40 quid a session. He got a Ford Fiesta for his 17th birthday. Second hand, but still, a car. When he turned 21, Mom and Dad put down the deposit on his first flat in Hillsborough. £14,000. They never even discussed it. It was just what you did for Declan. I got hand-me-downs. Declan's old trainers, Declan's old coat, Declan's old school bag with his name still written inside in marker pen. I shared a bedroom with him until I was 16 and he moved out. I started working at Tesco on Abbeydale Road when I was 15, stacking shelves after school so I could buy my own clothes. Nobody suggested that was unfair. It was just how things were. Our parents are Keith and Sandra. Dad's 63 now, retired electrician. Mom's 61, works part-time on reception at a GP surgery in Darnell. Good people, in most ways. They paid their bills, kept the house warm, never raised a hand. But they had a blind spot the size of Declan, and they never once acknowledged it. The only person who saw it was Gran, Dad's mother, Maureen. She lived in a little semi in Intake. 3 bedrooms, net curtains, always smelled like Yardley lavender and toast. Gran would slip me 20-pound notes when no one was looking. She took me to the Crucible Theater every Christmas to see the panto. She'd sit with me in her kitchen while I did homework and say things quietly, almost to herself. "You're the strong one, love. That's why they lean on you." I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. I qualified as a paramedic at 24, bought a modest terraced house and wood seats with savings I'd scraped together over 6 years. No deposit from Mom and Dad, no family help. I was proud of that. Quietly, bitterly proud. Declan went a different direction. His first restaurant was a tapas bar in Kellam Island, opened in 2017. Slate plates, overpriced patatas bravas, exposed brick. It lasted 14 months. When it went under, Mom and Dad covered £35,000 in debts. They remortgaged. Nobody told me until it was done. His second attempt was a burger joint near Meadowhall. Smash burgers, craft beer, neon signs. It opened in early 2020. You can guess what happened next. That one collapsed, owing another $40,000. Mom and Dad paid again. Dad was 59 by then and working double shifts to cover it. Nobody questioned it. Nobody said, maybe Declan shouldn't open another restaurant. At family dinners, every conversation centered on Declan's next big idea. What location he was scouting. What investor he'd met at some networking thing. What cuisine was trending. I'd sit there eating Mom's roast chicken and wait for someone to ask about my life. Sometimes they did. Still enjoying the ambulance then? That was it. The whole question, the whole interest. I stopped going to Sunday dinners for a while. Nobody noticed for 3 weeks. But I kept visiting Gran. Every Tuesday evening, without fail. Fish and chips from the shop on Prince of Wales Road. 2 cups of tea. Countdown on the telly. She was getting frailer, but her mind was razor sharp. She'd ask me about my shifts. She'd remember the names of patients I'd mentioned weeks earlier. She listened like what I said actually mattered. Then Gran died. Peacefully, in her sleep, on a Wednesday in November. She was 86. And what she left behind wasn't just money. It was a shield she'd been forging for years, waiting for the exact moment I'd need it. I just didn't know it yet. Gran's solicitor contacted me 3 weeks after the funeral. A woman named Janet Pallister, offices above a chemist in Intake. She sat me down and explained that Maureen had set up a trust in 2019. Not a will, a trust. The difference matters. A will goes through probate. Family can contest it. Things get messy. A trust is a locked box. Gran had put 137,500 pounds into it, named me as the sole beneficiary, and specifically excluded my parents as trustees. She'd used savings nobody knew she had. 40 years of squirreling away cash from her pension, premium bonds, a small insurance payout from when Granddad died in 2003. Janet told me Gran had been very clear about one thing. He'll come for it eventually. Make sure he can't touch it. She meant Declan. Gran knew. She'd always known. I didn't tell anyone about the trust. Not Mum, not Dad, not Declan. I let it sit. For months, I just let it sit there, like a fire extinguisher behind glass. Break in case of emergency. The emergency came in March. Declan's third venture was a premium street food hall on Ecclesall Road. He'd leased a massive unit, hired an interior designer from Leeds, blown through cash on Instagram marketing, neon signs, concrete floors, a cocktail bar with a name I can't even remember. It lasted 11 months. When it collapsed, it owed £90,000 to creditors, suppliers, the landlord, HMRC, and this time, Declan had convinced Mum and Dad to remortgage their semi and intake to fund it. Their retirement savings. Gone. I found out at Sunday dinner, first one I'd been to in weeks. Mum's hands were trembling as she passed the gravy. She explained it slowly, like she was still trying to understand it herself. The mortgage payments had doubled. Dad's pension wouldn't cover them. They might lose the house. Declan sat across from me, eating roast beef, knife and fork moving steadily, like nothing had happened. Then Dad turned to me. We need to discuss Gran's money, Callum. I put down my fork. What about it? Your Gran left you that money for family. Well, family needs it now. Declan needs capital to relaunch properly this time. New location, smaller overheads, and we need to cover the mortgage shortfall until things settle. She left it to me, Dad, in a trust, specifically bypassing you. I looked at him. Have you ever wondered why? Mum cut in. Don't be cruel, Callum. Declan's going through hell right now. He's going through hell? You just told me you might lose your house because of him. Declan leaned back in his chair. Mate, it's a loan. 18 months tops. I'll pay it back with interest. The concept was sound. It was the landlord who pulled the lease terms, and then the suppliers. It's always someone else, isn't it? I said. The landlord, the economy, the supplier, the pandemic. Never you. It's never once been you. Dad's face went hard. That look I'd seen my whole life. The look that said I was being difficult. That I was the problem. Declan has vision. You just drive an ambulance. The table went quiet. Mum stared at her plate. Declan looked at Dad and didn't correct him. Didn't say a word. I stood up, put on my jacket, picked up my keys from the counter. I'm not giving him a penny. And the fact that you'd ask tells me everything Gran already knew. Nobody followed me to the door. I drove home to wood seats doing 40 in a 60 zone because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from sadness, from rage. Pure, clean, 34 years of accumulated rage. The following week, Mum rewrote the will, left everything to Declan. The house, the car, the savings account with whatever was left in it. She didn't tell me directly. Dad mentioned it on the phone like it was weather. Your mother's updated the will, by the way, just so you know where things stand. I said nothing. Hung up. Monday morning, 6 a.m. shift. I was standing at the ambulance bay at the Northern General, coffee going cold, telling Priya Kaur everything. Priya's 31. Used to work as a solicitor's assistant at a firm in Rotherham before she retrained as a paramedic dispatcher. Sharp mind. Doesn't miss things. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. Then she set down her cup and said, Cal, the remortgage. Did your mom actually agree to that? Because the way you're describing your dad running things, the way your mom looked at dinner, I'd want to see the paperwork. What do you mean? I mean, did Sandra actually sign the remortgage documents? Or did someone sign them for her? I thought Priya was being paranoid, overthinking it. But that night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and I couldn't sleep. Because the more I replayed Mum's trembling hands at that dinner table, the more I replayed her face, the more I realized something. She hadn't looked guilty. She'd looked confused. Priya told me exactly what to do. Go to the land registry website, pay £3, download the title register for my parents' property in intake. It took 4 minutes. The remortgage was filed in November 2023. Sandra Reed's signature was on the document, clear as day. I drove to Mum's on a Wednesday afternoon. Dad was at the bookies on City Road, like he always is between 2 and 5. Mum made tea. I sat at the kitchen table and slid the printout across to her. "Mum, did you sign this?" She put on her reading glasses, looked at it for a long time. Then she looked up at me, and her face did something I'd never seen before. It just emptied. "I never signed that. I didn't even know about the remortgage until January. Your dad told me Declan had sorted a business loan." That's what he said, a business loan. I took a photo of the document and sent it to Priya that night. She compared it with Mum's signature on a birthday card I still had in a drawer. The S was wrong. Mum's S loops tight at the top and trails off. The one on the remortgage document swooped wide, the pressure heavier, the angle different. Priya said it wasn't proof on its own, but it was enough to get a formal opinion. She said I needed a solicitor and I needed an accountant. I called Owen Hartley. We went to school together at Meadowhead. Owen's 33, works at an accounting firm in Chesterfield, quiet bloke, loves cricket, hates dishonesty with a passion that borders on personal. I told him everything over a pint at the Broadfield on a Friday night. He didn't say much, just nodded. Then he said, "Give me your brother's company name." Ecclesall Eats Limited. Owen ran it through Company's House that weekend. What he found made my stomach turn. Ecclesall Eats was linked to another company called DK Ventures Limited, registered to a P.O. box in Doncaster. Same director, Declan Keith Reed. Owen traced the money. Over 7 years, £215,000 had moved from my parents' accounts into entities Declan controlled. Not the £75,000 the family acknowledged. Not even close. Some payments came from a joint account Mum told me she had no access to. Dad managed it. Dad signed the checks. Or someone did. £215,000. Then the walls started closing in. Dad found out I'd been digging. Mum let it slip during one of their arguments. He phoned me on a Tuesday night, screaming, "You're tearing this family apart over jealousy. You've always been jealous of your brother. Your gran filled your head with poison, and now you're finishing what she started." I hung up. Declan sent a WhatsApp voice note the next morning. Calm, almost gentle. That voice he uses when he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. "Bro, I get it. You're stressed, but you're embarrassing yourself here. Let's just sort this out like adults. Come round, have a beer. I'll show you the books. I'll pay you back double. You know I'm good for it." I didn't respond. Then Mum called, crying. "Callum, maybe I did sign it. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Your dad says I've been forgetful lately. Maybe he's right. Please, just stop this. Please." I could hear Dad in the background. Not the words, just the tone. That low, steady pressure he'd been applying to her for 40 years. 3 days later, a letter arrived from a solicitor in Sheffield. Keith and Sandra Reed had formally rewritten their will. Everything to Declan Keith Reed. The letter included a single line that felt like a slap. "Since you've made clear you want no part in this family's future, your parents have respected that wish." I read it twice, folded it, put it in the folder with everything else. The next morning, I drove to Rotherham. Henderson and Bright Solicitors, 2nd floor, above a Greg's. The solicitor was a woman named Fiona Bright, mid-40s, no nonsense, reading glasses on a chain. I put the folder on her desk. Land registry documents, Owen's financial trace, Mum's initial denial, the signature comparison, the WhatsApp voice note, the letter about the will. Fiona went through everything for 40 minutes without speaking. Then she took off her glasses and said, "Mr. Reed, this isn't a family dispute anymore. This is fraud, potentially coercive control as well. I'm referring the forgery to South Yorkshire Police." Owen went even further than I'd asked. He prepared a full forensic breakdown of DK Ventures Ltd, money cycling from the shell company back to Declan's personal accounts, lease payments on a BMW 3 Series, 2 holidays to Marbella, a Rolex bought in March 2024, None of it reinvested in any business. He gave it to me on a USB stick outside the Broadfield. If your brother's solicitor tries to claim legitimate business expenses, this kills that argument dead. The police called me on a Thursday morning. I was halfway through a 12-hour shift, parked outside the Northern General, eating a sandwich. "Mr. Callum Reed, this is DC Warren, South Yorkshire Police. We've made an arrest." My hands were steady. I'd held dying people in those hands. But in that moment, they almost shook. 2 weeks after Declan's arrest, Fiona arranged a meeting at her office in Rotherham. Neutral ground. Not Mom and Dad's kitchen where everything had always been decided for me. A conference room with a water jug and paper cups and strip lighting that hid nothing. Keith and Sandra sat on one side of the table. I sat on the other. Declan wasn't there. He was on bail, barred from contacting Mum directly as part of his conditions. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 14 days. His face was gray. His hands sat flat on the table, like he didn't trust them to stay still. Mum was clutching a tissue, but she was sitting upright, straight-backed. It was the first time I'd seen her without Dad's hand on her shoulder or his voice in her ear. She looked smaller, but somehow more solid. Fiona laid it all out. The forged signature, the shell company registered in Doncaster, the £215,000 in total transfers, the BMW lease payments, the Marbella holidays, the Rolex. Every document printed cleanly, arranged in order. She didn't editorialize. She didn't need to. The paper did the talking. Dad stared at the spreadsheet Owen had prepared, column after column. Date, amount, source account, destination. 7 years of money disappearing into Declan's pockets. "He said the businesses needed it," Dad said. His voice sounded scraped out. "He said your mum agreed to all of it." "She didn't, Dad." "You know she didn't. You just didn't want to look." Mum spoke then, quietly but clearly. "I didn't sign it, Keith. I told you in January. I told you I'd never seen that remortgage document. You said I was confused. You said I was being forgetful. She wasn't crying. That was what got me. She was past crying." Dad put his head in his hands. He sat like that for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. Fiona poured water and said nothing. Finally, he looked up, and his eyes were wet and red. "I thought he'd make something of himself. I thought if we just gave him enough, eventually it would click. Eventually he'd become the man I kept telling everyone he was." "You gave him everything," I said, "including things that weren't yours to give. And you punished me for saying no. You rewrote your will to cut me out because I wouldn't hand over the one thing Grans specifically protected from all of you." Dad didn't apologize. Not directly. I don't think he knows how. But he looked at me across that table and said, "Your Gran was right about you." It was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd ever received from him. I let it sit there. I didn't thank him for it. It was 30 years late, and it cost him nothing to say. Declan was charged with fraud by false representation and forgery. He faced up to 10 years. In the end, his solicitor negotiated. He pleaded guilty to reduced charges. 2 years, suspended. A restitution order of £90,000. Community service. The remortgage was investigated by the lender, and Fiona told Mum and Dad they had grounds to have it reversed entirely, since it was obtained through forgery. The house and intake was safe. For now. The will was rewritten a third time, split equally between me and Declan. I called Fiona the day I found out, told her I didn't want to be included. "I have Grans' trust," I said. "That's enough." It was always enough. A month later, Mum called, asked if I'd come for tea, just the two of us. I almost said no, but I went. We sat in that same kitchen, the same table where I'd been invisible for 30 years. She made tea in the brown pot, the one Gran had given her, and she said, "I should have protected you, both of you, him from himself and you from all of us." I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't, but I stayed for a second cup. Dad sent a text the following week. 4 words. "Proud of you, son." I read it sitting in the ambulance bay at the Northern General. Read it twice. Put my phone back in my pocket. I didn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I didn't delete it either. I used part of Grans' trust as a deposit on a 3-bedroom end terrace in Netheredge. Garden out back, big enough for a dog. I adopted a rescue greyhound from a place near Doncaster. Called him Biscuit. He sleeps on the sofa and steals toast off the counter, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to my mornings. I got promoted to paramedic team mentor, training new recruits. Started seeing someone, a nurse called Jess from the Northern General. She laughs at things I didn't know were funny. Priya and Owen come round for curry nights on Fridays. Owen brings beer, Priya brings her opinions. My house is loud and warm and full of people who actually see me. Gran knew. She always knew. She couldn't fix my family while she was alive, but she made damn sure that when the walls finally came down, I'd be the one left standing. Not because I had vision, because I had something Declan never did. The ability to build something real without taking it from someone else. Thanks, Gran. The kettle's always on for you.